In a village nestled at the forest's edge lived a young girl beloved by everyone who knew her. Her grandmother cherished her most of all and had recently sewn her a beautiful crimson velvet cape with a hood. The girl adored it so thoroughly that she refused to wear anything else upon her head, earning her the nickname that would follow her always, Little Red Riding Hood. On a crisp autumn morning, her mother summoned her to the kitchen with news that carried worry in her voice.
The grandmother had taken ill and required nourishment to regain her strength.
The mother prepared a wicker basket, carefully arranging fresh baked cake wrapped in linen and a bottle of elderberry wine within its depths.
Enter grandmother's cottage respectfully, greet her properly, and return before nightfall.
Do you understand the importance of what I'm telling you?
Little Red Riding Hood nodded solemnly and gave her promise to obey every instruction. She understood her mother's concerns, though in her young heart she felt confident and unafraid. The grandmother's cottage stood deep within the woodland, perhaps 3/4 of an hour's journey from the village edge, marked by 3 ancient oak trees whose branches spread like protective arms above the roof. Little Red Riding Hood departed with her basket swinging from her arm, a cheerful melody upon her lips. The morning air carried the sweet scent of pine and earth, and sunlight filtered through the canopy in dancing patterns. She had traveled perhaps 1/3 of the distance when a wolf emerged from behind a moss-covered boulder. The creature was larger than any dog she had encountered, with gray fur that caught the light and eyes that gleamed with an intelligence that should have warned her. But she was innocent of the world's darker truths and saw only another forest dweller.
"Good morning to you, young maiden,"
the wolf said.
"Good morning, sir,"
she replied politely, as her mother had taught her to greet all she met.
"Might I inquire where your journey takes you on this fine day?"
"I'm traveling to visit my grandmother, who has fallen ill."
"How thoughtful of you! And what treasures does your basket contain?"
"Cake that my mother baked this morning, and wine to restore her strength and spirits."
"A dutiful granddaughter indeed. And where might I find this fortunate grandmother of yours?"
"Perhaps another half-hour along this path, beneath 3 great oak trees that have stood since before my mother was born."
The wolf's mind began working swiftly as schemes took shape. The child appeared tender and plump, surely a more delicious meal than an elderly woman. Yet, why choose when cunning might secure both prizes? He would need to be clever, but cleverness was his particular gift. The wolf walked alongside her briefly, then spoke again with calculated casualness.
"Me, Little Red Riding Hood, do you notice how magnificently the morning sun penetrates the forest canopy? You walk with such determined purpose, as though traveling to complete a tedious task. Yet you're surrounded by extraordinary beauty that deserves appreciation."
She paused and looked upward. Golden light streamed through the leaves in brilliant shafts, illuminating wildflowers she hadn't noticed. Bird songs filled the air with complex harmonies. The forest suddenly seemed alive with wonders she had overlooked in her hurry.
"Mother instructed me to make haste,"
she said, though uncertainty had crept into her voice.
"Surely your grandmother would find great joy in receiving fresh flowers. See how they bloom everywhere around us. Such vibrant colors, such delicate petals. What grandmother wouldn't be delighted by such a thoughtful gesture?"
The suggestion seemed genuinely kind and considerate. Little Red Riding Hood pictured her grandmother's face brightening at the sight of a beautiful bouquet. And so she stepped off the established path and began collecting blossoms. Each flower she plucked revealed another even lovelier specimen growing just beyond, and gradually she wandered deeper into the forest's interior, moving farther from the safe path with each step. The wolf wasted no time with flowers. He sprinted directly toward the grandmother's cottage, his powerful legs covering the distance rapidly. Upon arriving, he knocked upon the wooden door with calculated gentleness.
Who calls upon me?
Came a weak voice from somewhere within the cottage.
It's Little Red Riding Hood, Grandmother. I've brought cake and wine to help you recover. Please open the door.
The latch is unlocked, dear child. Simply lift it and enter. I lack the strength to rise from my bed.
The wolf lifted the latch carefully, pushed the door open, and crossed the small cottage in several swift strides. Before the elderly woman could register what was happening, he opened his enormous jaws and swallowed her whole nightgown and all. He then dressed himself in her spare nightgown, climbed beneath her quilts, and pulled the bed curtains partially closed to create shadows that would conceal his true features. Meanwhile, Little Red Riding Hood had gathered an enormous bouquet, so many flowers that her arms could barely contain them all. Finally, remembering her original purpose, she returned to the path and hurried onward toward the 3 oak trees. Approaching the cottage, she felt surprised seeing the door standing ajar. As she crossed the threshold, an inexplicable sensation washed over her. Something fundamental had changed, though she couldn't identify what seemed wrong. The cottage interior appeared darker than her memories suggested, the atmosphere heavier and somehow threatening.
Good morning, Grandmother.
She called out, though her voice emerged smaller than intended.
Come closer, dear child.
Answered a strange, muffled voice from the bed's direction. Little Red Riding Hood approached slowly, setting her basket upon the floor. She studied the figure beneath the heavy blankets, noticing details that seemed increasingly wrong.
Grandmother, your ears appear remarkably large.
The better to hear your sweet voice, my dear.
But Grandmother, your eyes seem so enormous.
The better to see your lovely face, child.
A cold sensation touched her heart. She took another hesitant step forward.
Grandmother, your hands look extraordinarily big.
The better to embrace you with, my darling.
Her voice dropped to barely a whisper.
Your mouth is absolutely huge.
To devour you.
The wolf exploded from the bed, his massive jaws gaping wide, teeth gleaming in the dim light. Little Red Riding Hood stumbled backward and released a piercing scream that echoed through the cottage and carried into the surrounding forest. A huntsman who happened to be passing nearby heard the terrified scream and immediately ran toward the cottage. He burst through the door just as the wolf prepared to spring upon the child. Without hesitation, he raised his rifle and fired. The sharp crack of the gunshot filled the small space. The wolf collapsed heavily and moved no more. Little Red Riding Hood stood trembling violently, both hands pressed against her mouth. The huntsman knelt beside the wolf's body and noticed how unnaturally distended its belly appeared.
Grandmother!
Understanding immediately, he drew his hunting knife and carefully cut open the beast's stomach. The old woman tumbled out.
Oh, thanks the heavens you came.
She whispered, reaching for her granddaughter's hand with trembling fingers. The huntsman helped her into a chair while Little Red Riding Hood retrieved the cake and wine from her basket. The grandmother ate and drank slowly until color returned to her cheeks and her breathing became steady and regular. The child sat beside her in silence, processing everything that had occurred. She thought about leaving the path despite her mother's explicit warning, about the flowers that had seemed so important, about the wolf's persuasive voice that had sounded so reasonable and kind.
I will never disobey Mother again. I will never leave the path when I've been told to stay upon it.
You've learned a difficult but valuable lesson today. You're safe now, and more importantly, you're wiser than you were this morning.
The huntsman removed the wolf's body while Little Red Riding Hood remained with her grandmother until evening, then walked home through the darkening forest, holding tightly to the lesson that had been purchased at such terrible cost. Some months later, she was sent once more to her grandmother bearing provisions. As she walked, another wolf appeared and attempted to engage her in conversation, his voice as smooth and persuasive as silk. But Little Red Riding Hood neither stopped nor answered. She walked straight ahead until reaching her grandmother's cottage and immediately told the old woman about the encounter.
You have learned your lesson well.
And together they secured the door and sat by the warm fire. When evening came and all was peaceful, Little Red Riding Hood walked home through the forest, feeling calm and unafraid. She had learned her lesson thoroughly, and she carried that wisdom with her throughout all the days of her life.